Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's your sister Naima B. Robert, and I am here with the next video in our series on how to write for children. If you know anything about my work, then you'll know that I'm the award-winning author of almost 30 books now for children, teens and adults, and I love me some children's books, alhamdulillah. So we've already covered the what of writing for children, the who of writing for children, and now it's time for the how. How could you tell this story? How? What are the different ways? What are the different genres? What are the different types of book that you could be writing? That's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So, a lot of people come to me wanting to write a book, and as I said, the picture book is the most common idea that people have when they are interested in writing for children. But there is, again, a huge range of ways of writing for children. So I'm going to break it down for you in this video, mainly to give you an idea of what's possible, but also for you to start thinking more concretely about how you're going to take that idea that you came up with, bearing in mind who it's for, and then looking at exactly how you're going to explore this concept in a children's book, inshallah. We want to see some books coming out of this series, okay? We're not here just to waste time and have fun. So, let's look at the two main divisions, fiction and non-fiction. Fiction is a story that has imaginary elements, okay? It could be a very realistic story, but it's not a necessarily true story. So that's fiction, and it's basically has made up elements to it. Then you have non-fiction, which is fact-based, okay? Based on facts, based on knowledge, etc. A lot of people do not think that they can write non-fiction for children. They think that children are only interested in stories, and that's not true. Children will listen to a story, whether it's a story or a prose poem, or even just an exploration of a theme, as long as you grip them with the topic, okay, and with the language and the, whatever it is that you're doing when it comes to the craft of writing. So I'd like you to bear in mind that the topic that you have in mind could be approached from a fiction lens or from a non-fiction lens. In the non-fiction area, what's very popular for children is creative non-fiction. That's when you find stories that are told like a story, but it's factually based, okay? Or it's a story that is there to teach because it's full of information. You see this very commonly when people are teaching about animals or about nature. The story is a vehicle for teaching about whatever information and knowledge that the book wants to transmit. So that's an option. Other examples of non-fiction, particularly in the Muslim area, are books of dua, for example. When you see books of dua or hadith for children, when you see stories from the Quran or stories from the seerah, these are all basically non-fiction, but are told in a way that is hopefully engaging for children. So that's something that you may want to explore. There are many, many ways of going into a subject which is factually based, which is knowledge based, but is still appealing for children. So I'd like you to think, if your topic fits, how you could do this as a non-fiction book. The other side is fiction, which is we're a lot more familiar with, where you're telling a story. The story could be inspired by real events. The story could have come directly from your imagination. But within that story, there's different ways of telling it. There is the character-based story where there is a main character who will go through a journey, and their story has a beginning and a middle and an end. But there are also stories that are, there's also fiction that is not told in that linear way. If you're familiar with my book Ramadan Moon, then you'll know that there is not really a protagonist in that story. There isn't really a beginning, middle and end to the story. The child's voice is the narrator, and the child is sort of narrating the story of Ramadan, but it isn't your typical beginning, middle and end scenario. So your homework today is to go to your children's library or to your children's bookshelf and pull out a few of your favorite titles and see if you can ascertain what approach the author used. Is this book fiction? Is it non-fiction? Is it a story with a protagonist and a beginning and a middle and an end? Or is it more of a poem? Is it more of a prose poem? Have they used a completely different technique? Have a look and hopefully draw some inspiration from the different titles, because the reality is, whatever you want to put out into the world, you need to have the language to do it. You need to have the raw materials. And what I always say to all my clients is, if you want to write for children, you need to read children's books. You need to be familiar with that genre. Be familiar with how other authors approach the topic and see which ones are your favorites. And you may find that your favorite authors and the way that they tell their stories, the way that they get their message across, will influence you when you now want to tell stories and get your message across. So read the very best children's books out there, get familiar with your children's favorites, and inshallah you'll find that when now you go to write your story, those aspects and those elements that made those other books so successful will transmit to your writing too, inshallah. So today we talked about the how, and again, really important for you to know what's possible and then start to make some decisions. What's making sense to you right now? What's speaking to you the most? Have you been inspired on this quest to say, I think I could do it this way, or I could do it that way? I hope so, because by the end of this series, like I said, we want some stories, we want some books. So that's your homework. Go and do some research and start thinking about how you are going to tell the story, how you're going to explore the topic that you came up with a few videos ago. I want to hear all about it in the comments, and if you know that you would like to work with me to develop this further and actually write this story, get it edited and published, I would love to work with you and have you be one of those 222 Muslimah authors that we celebrate at the end of the year, bi'idhnillah. So click on the link by this video or simply go to my website, naimarobert.com/services, and get in touch. Make me excited about your idea. I love children's books. My team and I love working with children's authors, and we would love to toast your success, inshallah. So until the next video, go off and do your homework. Right now, barakallahu feekum.